Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Flying Triangle Podcast, Episode 4. My name is the Schnozby, and I have with me...
What up, it's Matty Ice.
And this is K-Rock. We're about to get after it after UFC 272.
Hell yeah, we just got done watching it literally less than an hour ago. And, yeah.
It was a card.
It was a card.
Ups and
It's
downs.
very interesting.
Sure.
For a non-title fight card, is very interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely, it felt better before the last two fights. I guess we can get into it as we go, though. I'll just kind of elaborate that.
Let me pull up the card real quick before we poppity-pop ski into this rockety-rock ski, so to speak.
What the hell?
What the hell am I even talking?
Cut that, dude.
No, that's amazing. I'm not cutting that.
Hold on. Random note, because I just got the Wikipedia page pulled up while we're like killing dead air.
Yeah, this isn't dead air. This is amazing.
This is live air.
Umar Nurmagomedov or whatever is the only person on the card that does not have a Wikipedia page.
Okay, so
he definitely was.
Wow.
2 hours.
It was a great win.
So
But he's the only guy on the card.
Yeah,
Out of the prelims, the early prelims, everything.
That's
He's the
wild.
only guy on the card without a Wikipedia page.
that is kind of what. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so yeah, UFC 272 was tonight. Pretty good card. At least for the most part,
I think
pretty
it was
good
a
card.
pretty- I thought
I
it was
liked
a
it.
card,
I
yeah.
enjoyed it. I could see why maybe some people wouldn't like it, but it was a pretty decent card to me overall. On the prelims, we can kind of briefly go over it. We don't have to go too in depth, but there were some big wins. Like
I think we need to talk about the early prelims, actually.
the early prelims, there was a good Tim Elliott versus I don't. Sorry if I'm butchering this guy's name. Tagir Ulubekov. He's
That's a
member of like Khabib's camp. Yeah,
Khabib's camp there.
that was a pretty wild
And
fight.
that's what you guys were talking about earlier, how there was some issues with Khabib in the corner, or a little bit of
They're screaming at each
high
other.
tensions.
Yeah, it seemed like
they
they
were
were
screaming at each
because Tagir was definitely kind of trailing in this fight for the
Elliott won.
majority of the fight.
Yeah, well,
Is
there was a point, and I will say this, and like Tim Elliott won for sure.
Yeah,
But I will say this: there was a point where they separate, and Tim Elliott at some point grabs the dude's glove and pulls him into a fucking short elbow.
yeah,
As they're separating out, he
Well, there'd be a lot of
hooks his
stuff
glove.
like that.
Yeah.
on the specific fight night,
And,
card rather. There'd be a little bit of that.
Matt's pandering
It
right
wasn't,
now.
but a few fights later, Turner did the same thing.
I can't wait
See,
Matt's pandering right now.
Since I missed, since me and the Schnoz had to drive down to see the fights with K-Rock,
Yeah,
we
had
had
a bit
to
of
miss a couple.
Oh
of
man.
fights.
Okay,
They
so this
missed
is
one
non
fight.
MMA related, but before we got here to the location we watched the fights at,
Oh great!
Matty Ice and myself almost murdered somebody.
Well, thanks
pretty
for
much.
let's put that out there.
Yeah, let's incriminate ourselves real quick.
Thanks.
Actually, can I get a second here, real quick, to
Well, let's elaborate because Sean just said we almost killed someone.
All right,
It was in a
go ahead,
vehicular
finish.
incident
Go ahead,
that
finish.
did not occur.
It did not occur, but it almost.
It was not attempted. With no Cain Velasquez. No.
they tried. They tried to kill someone in the
I
Freedom
might have been
Convoy.
driving a tinge fast.
A tinge, yeah.
And I'll admit it because I'm a good man. Okay?
You are a good man, and I will agree to that.
And you know what? Nothing did happen.
I was joking
and
about the Freedom Convoy thing.
it wasn't a freedom.
We
Convoy?
did pass.
It probably was, but I made a political joke, and
We passed
I wanna add-
spectators
I wanna-
of the Freedom Convoy
Yes.
on the way here. Yeah,
That's the proper way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just making a joke, and I don't want. I always want to try to avoid making this podcast political because no one gives a shit about politics. Let's be real.
yeah.
Like we're talking about MMA. There's
So,
no
yeah.
reason to get anywhere.
Hell yeah. So after that, obviously Tim Elliott beat that. That was a pretty good fight, I thought. Pretty fun little fight. But Umar Nurmagomedov, Khabib's cousin, fought Brian Kelleher, who's like a bantamweight mainstay.
Well, Umar's 14-0 now, I think, right?
I think it's 15-0 after
Well,
this. But
yeah, he's
maybe.
he's
I could be
14 now.
wrong about that. But yeah, he kind of just sliced through him like a hot knife through butter. It was insane.
And Brian,
Kelleher.
yeah, he's not terrible. He's a gamer.
Not a slouch,
He's
no.
a gamer.
Yeah.
He gets out there.
Definitely.
But he got thrashed. I watched that fight. It was nothing to be proud of on the opposite end, but at the same time, it's like you may have just fought the next 135 champion.
Negu Maruanu defeated Kennedy and Chekawu.
All right, so that fight was the one you guys missed.
Okay.
And that was a fight that I firmly believe Kennedy Nunchaku or whatever
Won.
he won, But it should have been, in my opinion, it should have been a draw because he's the one who got point for the fingers.
Oh, yeah, you did
The
mention
fingers. But
this card would be marred in controversy, and it will go down in the record books as such.
It'll go down as one of the most decisive cards.
no, he's pandering right now.
A very controversial card
right now.
This would be from the refs.
We know
not
what's up.
stopping fights to the eye pokes to the glove pulls.
Honestly, I don't understand why. I don't understand why you're pandering so hard when you're still at 4-1. I'm at 3-2.
I'm having a perfectly good night. I'm not upset at all.
I'm definitely not upset. Okay, so the main card opened up with a heavyweight fight between Sergey Spivak and Greg Hardy.
We all picked Hardy to lose in this fight, right?
Yeah.
We all just it's this unanimous. And honestly, he looked like a fucking child on his back in that fight.
He has for several fights now.
Yeah, he's pretty awful.
Well, the other two fights
pretty awful. Let's just be honest.
The other two fights.
Let me transition here. Does Greg Hardy suck?
He's not good.
Not good.
Okay. Because there's a difference between suck and not good.
The last two fights before this, you can kind of mask it on the fact that he's fighting strikers.
Yeah.
I disagree. I think he's a below average heavyweight.
No.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. But the last two fights before this, where he lost, he was masking it on the fact that we're all trading and this, that, and the other. This guy just hit him with a hip flip, and it was over. As soon as the hip flip hit, you're like,
the hip flip was insane. I thought
he was out too because he was arguing the stoppage, and it was a clear stoppage.
I don't even know. It looked like he almost didn't know exactly where. He seemed defensive when he woke up. Kind of.
Well,
whoever was waking him.
If there's a 265-pound man beating your face in, I don't care if you're out or not. It's a safety protocol at that point.
It's just, again, the refs on this card, in all seriousness, a very strange issue with the timing of stoppages. When they did stop it, it seemed like it was a little late.
My man.
And when they didn't stop it, it looked like they should have.
In round 3
you don't agree that they should have? You don't think that they should have stopped it earlier? I think they definitely should have stopped it in the first round. Masvidal.
There's a difference between a stoppage and a momentarily stoppage.
Yeah, I just said stopped it. I didn't say stoppage.
Yeah,
they should have stopped it
They definitely should have stopped it probably sooner. The first fight, Sergey Spivak versus Greg.
They should maybe just 10 seconds earlier because Greg Hardy. There's a moment where he's not knocked out. He's obviously going to lose. He's not going to get off his back. And then the next second, it goes 2 seconds longer and he's knocked out.
If we're going to talk about a stoppage, it should happen.
RDA.
How in the world do you,
RDA.
How do you let a guy? How do you let a guy get?
We'll get to that.
There's not much more to say about Greg Hardy. Spivak did his job. Greg Hardy's still a joke.
Yeah. So the next fight on the card was a pretty good fight between Kevin Holland and Alex Cowboy Oliveira.
Amazing energy in this fight.
Definitely.
If it would have gone every round, I'm saying it would have been an absolute
banger.
Just a historically good fight, one of the best of the year so far.
I want to point out on real quick before we get into this because I'll just accept defeat at this point.
You probably should
because this is the one where I missed it. I went 3-2 on the main card out of 5, but I mean, in my defense, Oliveira looked surprisingly
fantastic.
Looked surprisingly good going into
up until the last few minutes of the fight.
It's the last minute of the fight
because last few seconds of the fight. Yeah,
I think that you guys were both because he was taking some severe leg damage.
The leg damage was
but
bad.
He was still extremely competitive. It was not to the point where he wasn't able to get his offense. He wasn't able to aggress. He still looked fantastic and was masking that leg pain very well. He was still fighting.
That being
his
said,
game.
Matt, I will say this.
Did he win or did he not win the first round?
He won the first round for sure, but I want to say this, Matt. Don't defend me. I feel like you're kind of defending me right now.
No, I didn't want to pick Holland. I said that in our last talk.
I will say Holland obviously won. The fight should have been stopped at that point. He got the hit and he was putting it on him, bringing it in. But Oliveira, he's still a gamer. He's still a gamer. Yeah. He's still there. He's still just
somebody said that he won in defeat. Maybe that was a different fight. No, it was Moicano. Sorry, I keep jumping ahead.
Yeah.
But still, again though,
McQuarrie
Oliveira gets another good fight soon, and he has another opportunity to prove himself because he looked great, and he just got caught. I know me and you were discussing again. The leg kicks were one thing. He got caught. That's my opinion of it, and it's that. And I told you if I'm going to pick Holland in that because I'm not going to choose a guy to lose. Holland was the more talented fighter.
I got a little question for you guys for Kevin Holland. Who's next? Who's next for Kevin Holland?
Oh man.
And so it's 170, right?
Yeah.
And he's staying 170.
Can you pull up the ranks for me?
Yeah, give me 1 second while I pop this beer.
Right, so,
Jeff Neal.
Jeff Neal will be a good fight.
Yeah, that's a good fight because you want Holland to win.
Stephen Thompson be a fun
Let's
fight.
talk about it right now.
Okay,
Let's talk about it right now.
2, 1. So who should Kevin Holland fight?
If I'm being 100% honest with you guys, and a lot of people will not agree with me on this, it all depends on what you want to do with Kevin Holland. Like, are you actually trying to ship Kevin Holland quickly?
You don't think it has to do with how fast?
I'll tell you what I'm picking.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. How quickly do you want?
Ladies and
Because
gentlemen,
I think Kevin Holland should fight Jorge Masvidal next.
ladies and gentlemen, the person that Kevin Holland should fight next is one Michael Chiesa.
No, that's my backup. That's my backup for sure.
I don't know if you.
I think it is.
Does Michael
Here's my
Chiesa
thing.
not have a fight lined up right now?
First off,
Michael Chiesa doesn't have a fight lined up right now.
I doubt it. He just lost to Sean Brady.
Ooh.
I'll say this right now. First off, it all depends on what you're trying to do with Kevin Holland. If you're trying to ease him in the game, then what I said with Jorge Masvidal is obviously a joke.
I think what you're trying to do with Kevin Holland is get him 1 or 2 fights he can win, have him win them, and then paint the story as he's always going to dominate in this weight class.
Okay, if that's what we're talking about, then I will say his next fight needs to be Nate Diaz.
God, Nate. You know what? I would normally say that in a typical position, I wouldn't think that Nate Diaz, but since Holland is a talker.
Yeah,
right,
I think it'd be a good fight. I think it'd be a good seller.
And I want to touch on this because I hadn't yet, and this is my big takeaway of this fight is Holland looked like a professional fighter for I think the first time in 4 or 5 fights. He acted like a professional fighter. He spoke afterwards like a professional. He said something that was very intelligent.
Well, he brought up the fact that he was saying
he said, I wasn't taking this seriously.
Yeah.
I was enjoying whatever I wanted to eat, and I wasn't acting like a pro fighter. And
so what I want to say is we've all we're all UFC fans here, big UFC fans, and we've bitched about the fact that fight nights and stuff have kind of been a dime a dozen recently, right? And then the Islam RDA fight night was when it first got announced, you're like, oh my god, that's actually a big fight, right? On a fight night, it's one that makes sense, and it got canceled and it sucked. But imagine Kevin Holland, Nate Diaz on a fight night main event.
Yeah, no,
that's one of those fights. Because
it's not just a Nate Diaz fight.
Yeah,
Kevin Holland also brings a draw.
Yeah.
So
that's one of those things. You're finally getting.
I'm fine with that because he should win, and that's along the lines. I don't care because right now I feel like just after one win against a guy who he should have beat. Let's not give Holland too much credit right now. He should have beat Oliveira. Just knowing his track record, we know he's the more talented fighter.
Well, he should have beat Oliveira, but he was losing every second of that fight.
But that doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Brunson was losing every second of the fight before Cannonier. He figured out what was happening. He made an adjustment in the corner, and he was the better fighter.
Next fight we have to talk about is Bryce Mitchell versus Edson Barboza. And Bryce Mitchell got up in that ass.
Ass whooping. And I'll be the first to admit it because I was the only one that picked Edson Barboza, right?
Yeah.
I was the only one that picked Edson Barboza.
Yes, sir.
And it was embarrassing.
It was brutal.
Not embarrassing, I guess, because
it was brutal.
It's the fight game, so you can't be embarrassed of the fact you stepped in the octagon, right? You stepped in there and you fought. But it was he just got him, and exactly the game plan Bryce Mitchell wanted to lay out. He laid it out, and he just went and he executed it perfectly. There was not a moment in that fight.
20 billion%.
Yeah, there's not a moment in that fight as a Bryce Mitchell supporter or whatever where you were scared. And I picked Edson Barboza in the fight last week on the Pick'ems, but watching the fight, I think Bryce Mitchell is something to be he may be the next top 5 gatekeeper, and that's kind of underselling.
Okay, so he thinks top 5 gatekeeper. That's the way he digested. So he's looking at a ceiling. Is that the ceiling that you think he has as a gatekeeper?
At 155, yeah.
Okay, what do you
145?
145?
Yes, sir.
What do you think
Edson
about?
was cutting to 145 on that fight?
Yes, sir.
145?
Yeah, that's what we talked about in fight.
Oh,
we
did talk about it.
We discussed
then honestly, I can't give an opinion on that because 145 is up in the air in my opinion.
Right.
So
I think he has a good shot at 145.
Yeah, exactly. Bryce Mitchell may be the guy then because if you were trying to do that at 155 with those,
what did
studs,
I say during the fights? He's the American Khabib.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Just elaborate.
I'm pretty sure I said that.
No, you didn't.
Yes, no. I think
you son of a bitch.
No, Schnoz, we will give you your due. That is an amazing comparison.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on just the comparison?
Well, I was just pointing out that they kind of have a similar, but because if you look at Khabib, honestly, like you would never think that guy was like one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time. Body shape wise,
yes.
Right? He's not like yoked or anything like that. Like he kind of just has an average body, and I feel like Bryce Mitchell has a similar, maybe a little bit better than Khabib. He's like built a little bit better, but it's similar in the fact that if you saw them on the streets in like plain clothes, you'd be like, "Oh, it's just some dude from my neighborhood."
Immediately when I was watching him, I was like, you know what? Because I've seen him fight, but Barbosa is a physical specimen.
Yeah.
So beside Barbosa, it looked very strange.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh my god, I was talking a bunch of mess last week when we were talking. Because I was like, oh, you're insane. I was just joking, but I was like, Mitchell's gonna ragdoll him and fucking submit him in the beginning of the first round. Is what I said. I was just kind of being a punk, but I was like, this is a weird thing to imagine. And we watched it with our own eyes. This physical specimen could dominate. Well, I wanted to ask you a quick question. Okay.
Yeah.
When you look at this fight, you know that most fights they don't look so. One guy who, did somebody lose the fight and did the other person win it?
No, it was an ass kicking.
This was nothing like that at all. Do you think that he'll be able to duplicate that against the top guy? Because is Edson Barbosa not a top guy?
It was 10, right? It was 10. It was 11 versus 10.
Ladies and gentlemen,
it was 11 versus 10, right?
Repeat segment. Who's next? I'm about to look up the featherweight rankings.
It was 11 versus 10.
Finna see.
First, I'll tell you right now.
Finna see.
You know who I think Bryce Mitchell should get next is Yair.
I like that.
That's an amazing fight, and it'd be an easy one to book.
Or I like him versus the winner of Arnold Allen and Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's making his 145 debut, and I think that could be a good fight well.
That's a hard one. I will agree with that, but like I'm not gonna hop on board with that real quick because same thing like I did with Kevin Holland in this card where he jumped to 170. Weight class changes are up in the air. I don't want to put too much faith or too much even reserve on a guy switching weight classes. I want to see what they do with that weight class before I make any kind of actual definitive opinion.
I have the fight for him right now. Calvin Kattar.
That'd be a good fight.
You know what?
Calvin Kattar versus Bryce Mitchell. That's what I'm calling for.
That's a hard fight for Bryce Mitchell, but
if he gets past that,
it's a winnable fight too.
Yeah.
Do you have the rankings pulled up right now?
Korean Zombie's getting the next title fight at 145, so he's out.
So
Max
I think
reserve fighting for
I think the
fight.
next fight is going to be Josh Emmett. If I'm a betting man, I think it's going to be Josh Emmett for Mitchell.
He's going to smoke Emmett.
That would do nothing for Mitchell. Mitchell
why not? He's six,
I like
he's
him
6
versus,
spots up. He's 6 spots up on the ranking. Why would it be nothing?
I mean, not
because this win probably moved Mitchell up to like 10.
Emmett's ranked 6th right now.
He just beat Edson Barbosa. You do
who
not
was
follow up Barbosa with Emmett.
Yeah, but Emmett's ranked number 6. Emmett's ranked way higher than him, so it would be a good fight in terms of Emmett's on like a 4-fight winning streak. Knocked out Michael Johnson.
Maybe
TKO.
It's one of those things where it's a little low key and he can snag a win.
No, it'd be.
I think that would be a good matchup.
It'd be the perfect
Bryce Mitchell. Yeah.
Exactly. It'd be the perfect matchup for him.
I think it'd be a winnable fight for him. That's for sure.
And it would get him close to top 5. It would get him like a win away from a title fight. You know what I mean?
You think that Emmett would get him a win away? I think that
Emmett's 6th now in rankings.
He would beat Emmett, and then he would get a title eliminator, I would bet. I would imagine.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine how it's shaken out up there 2 or 3 fights down deep.
I think Emmett...
If it really looks that good in the rankings, I just never thought that... I'm
145
Emmett like a journeyman.
145 is just kind of thin right now. That's why I say...
You think Emmett is a journeyman? He came up on the scene out of nowhere. I will say this. You know what I think of Emmett as is... or in this
He's
fight...
17-2.
In this fight, and his only loss... That's a...
He got knocked out by
loss.
Jeremy Stevens and a
loss.
split decision loss to Desmond Green. That's the only bad loss he has to Jeremy Stevens.
Jeremy Stevens is a bad loss at that point.
But then he's got 4 wins since that.
No, I think Josh Emmett is a perfect example of the Khabib camp dilemma. Anyone that comes out of Khabib's camp is automatically considered a contender, right? And that's just what they do. Same thing with Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett got like boosted up on a card because he knew a guy.
He knew a guy that knew a guy that knew a guy.
And he got boosted up on a card when he knocked out
Ricardo Lamas, I think.
Yeah, Ricardo Lamas. He got boosted up on a card because he was in a camp with somebody who was on that card, and they were like, "Hey, man, we need someone to fill in for this fight." And Josh Emmett got to fill in for that fight, and he just happened to ice the dude.
I think so, yeah.
And like that's how it's the Habib effect, man.
For sure.
A lot of Habib people are just like, "Oh, you train with Habib? Oh, you're a contender. You're a guy who's we're gonna push you."
You know what? I think it's a winnable fight. I think Josh Emmett's not an outlandish.
No,
matchup.
I think it's a perfect matchup. For
and
Bryce Mitchell.
hey, great rap.
If I'm in
great rap,
he's got some great rap.
Bryce Mitchell has bars.
He's got a little
Midwest
bit of rippy
chopper,
rap,
dude.
Yeah, that's chopper.
If I'm Bryce
Arkansas,
Mitchell, if I'm Bryce Mitchell's camp,
Arkansas with the bars and all,
keeping it clean like Barbasol. Shave you up with it.
Keep my whip clean like Armor All.
Oh. The little wipes.
All right. So the next fight on the card was the co-main event. It was obviously the last-minute catchweight fight at 160 pounds between Rafael dos Anjos and Renato Moicano.
Okay. So I want to talk about this
where
real quick.
The card started to deteriorate.
I want to talk
This
about
is
this
where
real
this
quick.
card started to get wild.
I want to talk about this real quick. All right. So it's the score. It was a unanimous decision, obviously, 50-44. So he 10-8'd somewhere at one point. But how'd you get 49-44?
I don't know. Motherfucker got smashed.
I mean, maybe just on the grit. Maybe they're wrapped up in the emotion of Moicano just coming back in that fifth round a little bit and overpointing the fifth round. Because RDA didn't do anything in the fifth round. Let's be honest. He didn't want to hurt him. We were watching it live. So maybe somebody gave him the fifth round because he was laying a couple shots here or there.
Well, no. If they gave him the fifth round, that means he got 2 10-8s on the way there.
I mean, yeah, that's possible. Why would that not be possible?
No, it's possible, but like, how aggressive is that as a judge?
It was one of the nastiest fights. And again, that fight should have been stopped. You guys tell me. You can go take your turn. I don't care.
I want to talk about this real quick because we're talking about judges. We're talking about judges right now. The fight we were talking about earlier with the guy. They took about 6-7 minutes to even announce that decision. The one where you guys were driving down here and you guys weren't here. They stopped. Like they were like, "Oh, the fight's over," and like they were all just standing in the octagon waiting.
It's a scandal.
Are we really discussing decisions right now with this fight, though? This fight was so blatant.
Well, no, I get that.
Like, who gives a damn if somebody gave one round?
I totally get that. But like I meant to bring this up earlier.
Moicano should have been. They should have stopped that.
They should have saved him. They should have saved him.
I mean, this man has long-lasting damage. Took years off this man's life.
But no, I
guess Moicano looked good, but I mean, gosh, he got destroyed with some really strange emotions coming out of him.
I guess Moicano looked good. He never looked good.
No,
really.
I mean, for finishing the fight.
Yeah,
for like getting it, he looked tough. I guess
that's what we were talking about earlier. You were talking about there was a fight where you're like, oh, his rep went up because he finished his fight. Not really.
No, I think that is a thing. I think when you look back at records, it very much is a thing.
We all watched the fifth round. RDA didn't want to kill that man.
Yeah, I know.
They took it easy on the
boy. But
boy.
Moicano was looking like he was never going to get knocked out. It's similar to when Max Holloway fights just about anyone.
Yeah.
I mean that.
Like, dude, RDA hits like a fucking ton of bricks compared to
Moicano's tough.
It's sure, yeah. But how many times have we seen, this is not an uncommon thing, for a guy to get absolutely destroyed. Kelvin Cater, we were just talking about him a minute ago.
Man, that kid got more.
Yeah, he got more. Ortega.
Not a single punch from Holloway was damaging. It was all more of like
punches and bunches.
Yeah.
The RDA wasn't very damaging either. What he was doing, he was getting him on the ground and he was rubbing into him. That he was getting him on the ground and slaughtering him on the ground. But it wasn't like he was leaning up on him. He was just working in shot. You watched it.
Yeah.
He was beating him on standing too. I'm not saying he wasn't, but on the ground is when it got bad. That's when he was really hurting Moicano. And it was just.
What were you saying about RDA earlier today?
I was just telling you. I really wish you'd go easier on my man RDA. I think that RDA has.
You were saying that?
Yeah. RDA, he'll fight anyone.
Can we check the last podcast real quick? He'll fight anybody? Yeah, Murderer's Row is what I'm pretty sure I said.
I said he would beat anyone he fought other than Islam. How much respect do you need from me, K-Rock? Just tell me what you want me to say.
Want you to say
the best in the world, no, but he is one of. I think that his ranking is completely justified. He's a top 5 fighter for sure.
He was ranked 6th.
I mean, he just proved that he's slide him into 5 now.
Slide him into 5.
I don't know, but he's a top 5.
I don't think anyone who's in the conversation for getting a title fight, if their eliminator is RDA, they don't want it. I think that's scary to them.
That was the co-main event.
That fight
RDA
sucked.
just slaughtered him. I thought it ruled because I won, so it ruled.
That's not what a good fight is.
It was a good fight to me. It ruled, and then the main event ruled because Colby Covington
results driven.
Yeah,
the flukiest fight.
Everything ruled because I won and I rule. And you guys.
All right. So let's stop. Sean, stop. Let's hear what Matt's fucking lion ass has to say real quick.
Let's just take turns speaking. I don't care who goes first. I don't have to go first. I can go first. It doesn't matter.
You're first. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Weird fight. The fight was strange. And before I hate on anyone, because I don't like
totally accurate.
Masvidal, the worst thing that happened is in the very beginning of the fight, he made a god awful mistake. When he got his eye poked, which it didn't seem very bad, my man started bitching and moaning, and he got immediately taken down. And I don't know if it was a minute, and I'm sorry, my memory does not serve me. It might have been 2 minutes into the round, but it felt like he got dominated on the ground for 3 or 4 minutes. That's exactly what Colby Covington
3 or 4 minutes every single round.
Yeah, that's round 1. And then the second round, Jorge Masvidal looked like he had absolutely no gas. But before I get too far ahead in this fight, the thing that got my stomach dropped was when Jorge Masvidal came out, and he just looked so lethargic, so concerned, so not in this fight at all. I was like, well, I picked the wrong guy. I sat here and said, I picked the wrong guy. And then Colby Covington fucking, I don't know, some Olympic flip, and he's like,
he still
let's
looks
go.
Like he's at it. Yeah, he still looks like
and I'm like, well, he's going to kick this. I could have never watched fighting before. My eye test is telling me Colby Covington's going to kick Jorge Masvidal's ass. And everything goes Covington's way in the fight. Like, he gets everything he wants, but he's never, doing anything special. He never really does he ever drop Jorge? He stuns him. Him. I've seen it.
You know what that is.
He never busts him open.
Completely controls him.
There's never a moment when he's on top where you're like, oh, where an elbow lands on his forehead.
Can I get 3 seconds real quick?
I'm okay, because I've been going for a long time. My point is, I wish the fight had gone differently. I wish I could have seen what I thought the fight was really, and maybe it would go like that every single time. I know that Jorge Masvidal has no gas. I don't know what his problem mentally is. I'll never have faith in him in a fight again, especially Jorge. He did not look right. And but I don't know if that would have ever even mattered. But I just hated the way the fight went. I hated that he stunned him in the 4th and couldn't finish him. I was like, I feel like
that was a close moment. I really
this is shades of what I thought could have happened if he had a tank, and maybe that had nothing to do with the eye poke. Maybe you guys are completely right. Maybe I'm an idiot, or maybe it doesn't really matter because Colby Covington got everything he wanted. So my point is, I thought it was fluky. I thought it didn't do anything to make Colby Covington look good. And I thought that Jorge Masvidal should have been able to show a little bit more what he actually has. That's my opinion. That's my take.
Okay, so my opinion on the fight is, I think you're right in the fact that in the 4th round, when he got that knockdown, there's a chance there. That's where Jorge should have gone for broke in that moment there after seeing what happened. But you know what I honestly think the biggest, with what you're saying with Covington not finishing and stuff like that, it was a fake beef. That's what it was. Covington wasn't trying to fucking go out there and kill his friend. It comes down to the fact that they were faking that. And when he was getting the upper hand and stuff, he wasn't trying to just ice his boy and stuff like that. It comes down to the fact that these guys know, both of them, they're, aside from Conor and Nate Diaz, both of them are the next 2 guys that are trying to sell fights. And there's no reason to come in there and just oversell it and overdo it the way that. So I think there was times where Covington could have done more, and he just wrote it out.
Oh yeah. So my take on these fights is that I rule. I'm fucking awesome. I went 5-0. You guys suck ass. I'm Stone Cold Sean Schnozby. Okay, Schnozby316 says I just predicted all these goddamn fights right, and I fucking rule. Peace fucking out, son.
You ever hear the saying, K-Rock, that act like you've scored before?
No, dude. I've never scored before, and this rules. Suck my dick.
I've never scored before, quote.